The government's announced 99% mortgages. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's going to be that beneficial to first-time buyers. However, it'll probably have a massive impact in a positive way for developers and investors. Let me explain. So it's election season. So what this typically means is the current government announces a raft of measures to encourage people to actually vote for them to be re-elected again. Housing is actually a massive part of any government's election process. Housing has been under strain for years, and previous governments have always tried to encourage more new entrants to actually get on the housing market and buy their own home. Now, I'm all about people being able to actually purchase their first home, get onto the housing ladder, but I actually think we're focusing on the wrong thing. For decades, there's been a massive shortage of homes, and we haven't been doing enough over the current government's term to actually address this. So there used to be a target of having to build 300,000 homes. We were only hitting around half of those homes being built. And what's ended up happening is the government's actually scrapped that target altogether. So understand this. So there's a massive shortage of homes. We scrapped the targets that was encouraging home builders to actually produce more homes. And now we're actually going to incentivize people to buy their own homes with a deposit of only 1%. Now let's break this down. So if the property was £400,000, potentially that first time buyer will need 1% of that, which is £4,000 to actually get onto the housing market. This will actually probably lead to a spike in house prices. With the previous Help to Buy, from speaking to agents, what it actually did was push up house prices of new build properties from what the current price was to probably 15 to even up to 25% more. Now, the 1% mortgage is probably going to have an even bigger impact. It's probably going to lead to a massive spike in house prices of new build homes out there. So instead of increasing the housing supply out there, what this actually do is put a strain on the housing market in terms of there'll be a spike in the demand for people wanting new homes. Now, it's not clear whether this is going to apply just to new build or previously built properties, but it'll lead to a spike on those entry-level properties, and we're likely to see house prices probably rise, I reckon, in the region of sort of 15 to 20% on those properties that the typical first-time buyer will be looking at. However, banks don't actually work like this. Banks actually work on affordability calculations. They look at what you're earning, what your outgoings are, and are you going to be able to afford that mortgage? So let's talk about a £400,000 property. Typically, you'll need something in the region of £100,000, and this may vary lender to lender, so obviously speak to your broker when this product gets announced. But how many of these first-time buyers actually will be earning that six-figure sum? Probably not that many. So if that borrower isn't earning a significant amount to be able to pay for the mortgage, the loan to value wouldn't actually be 99%. It may fall down to 75%, 65%, 60%. It will all depend on your affordability calculations. When this gets announced, you'll have to check this out with your broker and the lenders that you're looking at. Therefore, to actually make this 99% mortgage work, the bank will actually cover maybe 65, 75% of that debt. The other proportion that will make up the 99%, whether it will be 24%, that will have to actually be backed by the government. Now, it's not clear on how this will actually work, but we're keeping a firm eye on the new budget that's going to be in the spring. This will actually announce a raft of measures, and potentially the 99% mortgages is one of them. Now, we've actually seen stuff like this before. Cast your mind back to Help to Buy. When Help to Buy got announced, it only actually benefited new home builders. What it actually did was provide up to 40% deposit for that first-time buyer, which the government will back. This actually led to a spike in new build house prices on that entry range. So that property was typically $350,000. We saw it rise closer to that £400,000 mark. So if that person actually put the property back on the market, maybe one day after he actually purchased it and is no longer applicable to Help to Buy, he may not actually be able to get £400,000 for his property. It could be $350,000, and in some cases, a lot less. So to recap, this will probably be aimed at first-time buyers, but this will be announced in the spring budget. It's a great way of getting new people onto the housing market. We're all for that. but there's a shortage of new homes being built. This is likely to lead to a spike. What it'll probably actually do is, if you're an existing investor, it'll actually increase the value of your properties that you have out there. So it's probably a good time to actually acquire properties for yourself. Ensure obviously the affordability calculations as a landlord work out, and that you've actually got it in the right tax structure, whether it be limited company trust, personal name. Speak to your accountants for clarification on that. Now, how will this affect you as a property investor developer out there? Now, if you're like us, you're creating properties, whether it be conversions from commercial to residential or actually new build properties as well, this is actually likely to lead to a boom in housing for a short period of time. And this could be basically like similar to how Help to Buy was, create a spike. We saw home builders such as the big 4 or 5 make record profits, and we don't really see that slowing down for the next few years. Now, while we wait for further details to be announced, there's a few points that you need to actually bear in mind. The 99% mortgages will probably typically be only available for first-time buyers. I wouldn't actually expect it to be around for long. Don't forget, we've got an election likely to be towards the end of the year, maybe around November. So if it gets announced in the spring budget, it could be only a matter of months this is around. So if it is applicable to you, I would strongly recommend for you to take advantage of it. Don't expect every first-time buyer to be eligible for this mortgage. Now, the reason I say that, there was criteria that was applied to the Help to Buy, and we saw many people didn't actually qualify. So even though scheme was out, they actually had to go down the traditional route. Affordability. Now, because you're taking a bigger loan out, the government and the lender will want to ensure that you can actually afford to buy and run and pay your bills on this property. They don't really want to give you this mortgage and then a few years down the line have to repossess it, because the costs of actually doing that are actually very high, and recovering money from someone who's had their home repossessed is very, very difficult. As a developer, if you're making properties, especially if you're doing some of the conversion stuff where you can turn a commercial to resi around, typically around 3 to 9 months, get those properties done, because there's a potential to actually make a significant amount of profit, probably more than what you expected. Now, if you're someone that's looking to find deals, regardless of whether you're a seasoned property investor or you're looking to actually purchase your first investment, we've got the ideal video here for you.